Donald J. Brower from the GardenStateHSWrestling.com podcast, Near Fall. Big week we've had. We're kind of getting to the crux of the season. Team stuff is winding down. We're going to have the upcoming sectionals. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about some matches we covered this week, some big upsets we saw all throughout. But before we get into it, we got to thank our sponsors. Dan Wernickoff at Champion Athletes. Amazing job he does with us. I say this all the time, and I don't know if people seem to understand it, or I think I'm just kind of beating a dead horse at this point. You're an athlete. You want to go out there and perform at your best. The best way to do that is train the best. Yes, I understand that. You go work out, you lift the weights, you do that. But if you're going grabbing a greasy cheeseburger, this and that, you're not giving yourself the optimal fuel. Dan Wernickoff helps you with that. He will get you the best meal plans so you can descend in weight. You can feel good. You don't get any of that lagginess. I mean, I've talked about it before. When I was in high school, the way we lost weight, guys would put trash bags on, they'd run around in the gym and spit and try to lose weight that way, be completely unhappy. That's not the case. You get a plan and you work with him, you descend to what weight you want to do. It's a great thing, and it helps you, and you actually feel more energized. People have said that. They said when they're on the plan and they're following it, they're more energized with what they're doing. Now, you don't have to be a wrestler. You don't have to be an athlete. Dan will help you with that. So give him a shout at Champion Athletes and the Harrington companies with their construction, recycling, and Hoffman Supply. They're such a big proponent of what we do here. So thank you. And then they're one of the big proponents, not only of our podcast this year, but a lot of our live streaming we did this year. Now, speaking of our live streaming, we had two matches we handled this week, and tale of two different teams at both ones. First was the rivalry match on Wednesday. We went and we saw the West Morris Wolfpack taking on the Mendham Minutemen. Now, it was close, and then all of a sudden, it was close for most of it, back and forth. Gym wasn't as packed as I thought it would be for a Mendham West Morris, but it's still a good turnout. They were leading, and then once West Morris just started hitting with those hammers, the Campaneros, the Hares, the Montours, they started with Dean, those guys, it really started pulling away, and they wound up winning 57-20. They're getting ready, obviously, for the upcoming sectional tournament where they're going to be they're in Group 3. They're going to be heading out to Cranford, where they'll face Roxbury first round. Great matchup. If everybody remembers the Roxbury match from last week, division match, so that should be another good one before they face the winners. But we'll get to that in a minute. And then Mendham, they finish up. They didn't qualify for the team tournament. They're going to pick up a couple matches, I'm sure, this week, and they'll set their focus on the individual tournament, which will start next weekend. Or the 2 weekends, excuse me. The weekend after the Super Bowl on the 18th. The other couple matchups, the other matchup we covered this week was the Battle of Morris between Hills and Knolls. Really exciting matchup. You want to talk about a match that's topsy-turvy. When you look at these teams and how well they wrestle, if you were to kind of put the lineups out there and say who would go where, you would assume a Matt Leslie would go out and get a pin. He only got a decision. You would assume a Forte would get more. He got a major decision. So it was a lot of back and forth. And I honestly think the turning point that a lot of people thought that maybe Hills was going to win this was at heavyweight, where Davidson beat the county finalist Charles Young from Morris Knolls in ultimate tiebreaker, and the place exploded. So that was a really good match. I was glad to be a part of it, and had a little technical difficulties at the end with the camera, but when the electricity in that place was so far above standard that I was thrilled to be out there to do that again, and can't wait to be doing more with those schools going forward. Another matchup that we had that night, and pretty close, so maybe the electricity was shooting over that way, but Blair headed over to Morristown and faced Del Barton. Now, in the past, we understand Blair's a different animal, how their team is. They had to win this match in heavyweight to beat Del Barton. That shows you how much Del Barton has grown as a program in what they're doing and bringing, the top level athletes to their program and having them ready to wrestle. I don't want to hear the debate in the comments about, this school, that school, Del Barton, it's still a team. These are kids you're going to have to wrestle. They went out there, they went toe to toe with the number one team in the country and lost on a pin in heavyweight. So spare me, please. That was another match. I just kind of caught the replay on that, and I thought that was one of those matches you're like, wow, Del Barton's looking really good. And another match actually earlier in the week that kind of caught me by surprise, for full disclosure, I'm on the New Jersey Wrestling Writers Association, and this kind of threw a monkey wrench into some of our selections. Delaware Valley beating Phillipsburg 33-27. If I remember correctly, somebody said that was Coach Fitz's first win against Peteburg since 2006. I think that's right in that range. I mean, there's people on his team I don't even think were born in 2006. But, it's interesting to see, those teams come together, and it's strange because you kind of, it shows how wrestling can get. Because if you ask me, and this is nothing against Del Val or anything, how they had their full lineup, everybody was out there, you would have thought Peteburg would have just squeaked it out. We to full honesty, Peteburg is one of the top public teams, and that's taking nothing away from Delaware Valley. But they had some injuries, so I kind of thought, maybe they might not be able to persevere. They did great job by Del Val and Coach Fitz. And that's one of those statement wins for a program in that area. Just kind of being like, okay, boom, and that's a Division One. That's a Group One versus a Group One versus Group 5. So it's always nice to see those small schools kind of, David and Goliath style. Speaking of groups, we're going to be entering the group phase of states coming up here. For some of you who may know, some of you may not, the format is the same as last year. So what will happen is this. Previously, it used to be the first round was Monday. The semifinals were Wednesday. The sectional finals were Friday. Then the sectional champions would go down to groups, wrestle the semis, and then the winners will wrestle the finals later that night. Well, now that the groups have moved to Rutgers, that's changed. Rutgers only wanted the finals. So starting tomorrow around the state, in the brackets, so for example, North 1, Group 1, which is at Kittatinny, which will be the first one I talk about, 4 teams will go to Kittatinny. Kittatinny's the number 1 seed. They'll wrestle Hawthorne, who's the 8th seed. On the other side is the 4-5 seed, which is Butler and Pompton Lakes. Both those teams will wrestle. Whoever wins on each mat will then wrestle each other at 7 p.m. The winners of that will then advance to Wednesday at the higher seed left and wrestle for the sectional championships. Then Friday, it will be broken down by power points. So what will happen is the power points will say, this team is number 1, this team is 2, 3, 4. The top 2 seeds will host the lower seeds at their school. So for example, in Group 4, I'll use Group 4 as an example. If North Hunterdon, Mount Olive, Brick Memorial, and Jackson Memorial face all win, then North Hunterdon would host Jackson Memorial, the 4 seed, and the 1 seed, and then Mount Olive would host the Brick Memorial, and then the winners of that would then go on the Rutgers Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, which they say they'll be done by the game. They were last year. I think they were done by about 3:30 because of the way they have it broken down. Might even be earlier because there's way more room in Rutgers, I think. So it'll be interesting to see. And we're going to be, so for a lot of people wondering, what are you going to be covering? Right now, if everything goes to pass with what we're doing, we are going to be on Wednesday hosting, live streaming the North 1 Group 5 championships, which would be, if all things hold together, Passaic Tech versus Clifton. Now, if for some reason, and that would be at Passaic Tech. And if you've watched any of our matchups this year, great matchup between those two this year. So, I think the third time's a charm. Each one's 1-1. If it changes, we'll announce that, but that'll be where we're expected to be on Wednesday, unless things change, Passaic Tech. Friday, for the group semis, the plan right now is to be live streaming, if they make it, the Mount Olive one, if they're hosting a match. That's right now. Obviously, you can't tell because there's still a lot in the air, but those would kind of be our different ones. But I mean, looking at some of these brackets, I mean, the areas I cover are well represented. As I said, Group 1, Kittatinny's in there with Hawthorne. The North 1 Group 1 at Kittatinny. I cover all 4 teams in Kittatinny, Hawthorne, Butler, and Pompton Lakes. On the other side, you have Newton and Glen Rock. I'm looking at possibly that being a Kittatinny Emerson final, but I'll have my predictions up. But realistically, there's some really, really good wrestling going on. You know, and like I said, I'll have my predictions. I think, you know, when you look at everything, you look at Group 1, Del Val, I think you got to look at possibly winning it all down there. You know, I think Del Val could do it and possibly walk away as a Group 1 champion there. When you look at Group 2, I think you still got to look at Raritan. You know, there's nothing really thrown me that says they can't really, you know, win that. Group 3, looking at everything, I think you got to look at honestly, I don't think anybody's beating Delsey. You know, Delsey's just going to be on top. So it's basically, you go down, you wrestle Delsey, and hate to say it, but lose. I mean, Delsey's just kind of really been on a roll, but you might be catching them at a good time because they've been stumbling a little bit. Group 4 is going to be interesting because I feel Group 4, each team has lost some good wrestlers, but they're still good enough to win it. So it's more wide open if it makes sense like that. There's no dominant team in there. It's almost like the you know, and this is taking that away from, it's almost like the NFC South this year. It's 4 really good teams, but they, you know, all come together. Would it shock me if North Hunterdon won it all? No. Would it shock me if, you know, like we said, Jackson won? No. Would it shock me? No. And would it shock me if Mount Olive walked away with another title? No. So that's going to be the one that'll probably be the one you kind of look at. Group 5 to me, another wide open one. I like the teams. I don't think anybody's beating Southern. That's just me. Southern's kind of been really on a roll. I think we'll get well reputation, but I don't think anybody's beating Southern in that final. And then non-public A. I mean, is anybody beating Del Barton? Anybody? I don't think so. I think they'll most likely face either St. Joe's or Bergen Catholic in that final, but we'll see. But yeah, I think it'll be super, super interesting for what's going to happen there. Now, my wrestler of the week, Brandon Dean from West Morris. Now, he was up for it last week. I gave it to Stanich from Roxbury. Dean has been impressive. He is on a mission this year, and I got to see it when he wrestled Wednesday. Just the way he's been working and the season he's been putting together. He's a quiet guy, but he's not, you know, unnoticed. So Brandon Dean is going to be my wrestler of the week. So we're gonna head out. You know, we want to get everything set up. Check out my predictions coming up. I'll have all my stuff going on. You know, we'll have where we're going to be and keep you updated. But for Jared, the podcasting legend, I'm Donald J. Brower. We'll see you next week.